I want my future kids, I want our future kids to look up to their mom, or at least know that their mom stood behind her convictions and stood up for her values.
Hello, and welcome to Braving It with Tracie Renee, where stories of strength and inspiration are going to help you discover your brave. Let's go. Welcome to Braving It with Tracie Renee, and I am so excited today on the podcast. I have a beautiful, brave woman, Kim St. Onge. Welcome, Kim.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Before we get started, I want people to know how we met. And this is the first time we've met is here on the podcast, but I saw you on another news broadcast. They were interviewing you. And I thought to myself, I want to talk to that woman. And so I reached out and I asked you and you said yes. I was so shocked. Yeah.
I was excited when you reached out, and especially when you told me the name of your podcast and the mission behind it. I thought that was something that I was very interested in being a part of.
Oh, I'm so glad. Well, we just need to hear voices like yours, and it inspires other people. So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about you?
I was born and raised in St. Louis, which is where I live right now. And I ended up going to school at the University of Missouri, so Mizzou, and I studied broadcast journalism there. And then I ended up moving to Des Moines, Iowa, which very cold, but aside from the weather, I loved it there. I was there for 4.5 years. That was my first reporting job. I was working at the CBS affiliate TV station. And then I moved to Nashville, Tennessee, and I took a reporting job there and was there for about 2.5 years. And then, I have family in St. Louis. I have nieces and nephews. I myself was wanting to start a family at some point, get married, start a family. So I knew eventually I wanted to be back home in St. Louis. So there was a job opportunity here at one of the stations. So I ended up getting a job at KMOV, and I was there for about 2.5 years until things ended about 2 months ago.
Okay. So before we hear that story, you said you liked the name of the broadcast. Obviously, it's about braving it and being brave. So tell me, would you consider yourself always having been brave?
I don't think I would, or at least not as brave as I maybe feel right now. I would definitely tell you that my family, especially my parents, would say that I can be a little outspoken at times. And that was even how I was as a kid. And I would try to find ways to not necessarily follow the crowd. And I was trying to think about this because, there was this example that I can think of that was me when I was in high school. I played lacrosse all 4 years, and I love that sport. And I'm not exactly a confrontational person, even though I can be outspoken, but there was this one scenario where we were playing a game against another team in the area in St. Louis. And there was this girl on my team who was being bullied by another girl on the other team. And this girl on the other team was like 3 times her size. And it was getting pretty heated. And I felt like nobody was sticking up for her. So I basically decided that I would take it upon myself to stop the bullying. So I approached this other girl on the other team and tried to get it to stop. Didn't really stop. It just kind of escalated. And so I ended up getting temporarily kicked out of the game. But so there were instances of that where I felt this like, yeah, I can do this. But I would say generally speaking, no. And especially what has happened in the last 2 months. If you would have asked me even probably 5 months ago, if I would have ever been willing to do what I am right now, I don't know if I would have laughed or cried or what. I definitely would not have been able to do that. I don't think I would have felt brave enough.
Wow. Well, as a side note, I love lacrosse too. My son played and I loved it. I wish I would have played, but we didn't have it when I was growing up. So.
Yeah, it's kind of a newer sport-ish, yeah, I feel like.
Yeah, I love it. But I like the male version better.
Same.
You get to be a little bit more physical.
Yeah.
You didn't say, but you've been at your current job for 10 years, right?
Yeah, I was in TV for it was coming up on 10 years. So I hopped around to 3 different stations, but my career in TV was about 10 years.
Okay. And you just left 2 months ago, and you alluded to that a couple of times. So why don't you tell everybody why?
So the TV station I worked for was KMOV, but they were owned by a company called Meredith, which they own TV stations across the country. So they came out and told us this summer that we would need to be vaccinated by August 20th. And then if we weren't, we'd have to, take vacation days. And so basically I felt that that was against my morals and I was not going to be taking the vaccine. So I let them know. And, I was forced to take those vacation days, and it just really got very convoluted, and they ended up letting me go over that mandate. I did apply for a religious exemption, and the exemption was granted, but there was so much leading up to it. It was just, all these hoops they were wanting me to jump through. And then once they said that I could get the exemption, they came back with all these different stipulations that I felt like were discriminatory. And in my mind, I felt like that was very indicative of, okay, this is not just about health. And so basically I went back to my union representative. I was part of SAG-AFTRA union. And I went back to SAG-AFTRA and I said, I do not agree to follow these policies. So I was let go.
Wow. And you said that even a few months ago, before that, you would have never, ever thought you'd have had the strength to do that, right?
So, I wouldn't. And it's funny because I make a lot of notes in my iPhone, and I remember, I should start by saying my views have really shifted over the last couple of years. I became a Christian. I surrendered my life to Christ in 2018 on a mission trip in India. And so kind of as the years have gone on, especially over the last year and a half, my views started changing. And I remember one day starting to write one of the notes in my iPhone, and it was talking about this transformation that I've had. And I remember thinking in my head, one day I'm going to post this on social media and just let everyone know. And I must have looked at that 25 times, and I might add a little bit, but I was too scared and I couldn't even imagine posting it. And I haven't posted it, but I would absolutely post it now. And I've not only said what's basically in that I wrote, but I've said probably 10 times more. I have this new just like passion for just speaking what I'm feeling and what I'm saying, and trying to show others that I'm supporting them and that there's more support out there than I think a lot of people realize who are in this situation.
Right. That's exactly why I'm doing what I'm doing too. And it does shed a lot of light on things, and people need to feel supported and heard, right?
Yeah, I think people feel really alone. It's not just right now. I think right now, especially people who might be going through a similar situation that I did are feeling very alone. And so I think you need somebody to not make you feel crazy. That's the only way I can think of it. You feel like sometimes you're this fish who's swimming upstream, and you just feel like you're crazy if you're not kind of going with the crowd. And so I think that was the biggest thing that I wanted to do. I was offered a several $1,000 non-disclosure agreement, and trust me, there was a lot of temptation to want to take that money. I could really use it right now. I was out of a job, but I felt like my voice was worth it, to not be silenced, because I would have been had I signed that and taken the money. And I felt like that would have basically not allowed me to publicly just try to support people and reach out to people. And I feel like, we always say God uses things for good. And I feel like this has already shown itself. That's been true in my situation right now.
Absolutely. I love that choice you made. You could have taken the money and run, right?
I wanted it, trust me.
I'm sure. But you're standing on your convictions. And in the end, that's a win, right?
Yeah, I think so. I don't have any kids yet. I'm engaged right now. And so I'm excited to have kids. And, I talked to my fiance about this, and I said, look, I want my future kids, I want our future kids to look up to their mom, or at least know that their mom stood behind her convictions and stood up for her values. Even if my future kids didn't even agree with my decision, I still want them to know their mom was willing to lose it all, so to speak. In this case, it was my job, but she was willing to lose that in order to stand up for what she believed in. And so that's the kind of mom, that's the kind of example that I want to set for my kids, my future kids, and the public. And, it's easy to kind of brush things off when maybe you just don't like it. Like, you all have those days in work, or whatever mundane thing you're doing that you're like, okay, not really happy doing this, but when it starts going against your morals, I think, for me, at least, that was where I really drew the line. And that was essentially what happened here.
Yes, I agree 1000% with you. And just being that encouragement, so just looking at you, you radiate Jesus, you radiate Christ's love, and you are going to make a difference
Thank you.
I love it. I'm so appreciative of you talking to me. We're not done yet though. I'm just want to give you a little encouragement. So did you ever think maybe I should just go against, in this case, get the vaccine? Maybe I should just go ahead and do it. Did it cross your mind ever?
I don't think I saw myself getting the vaccine. I can be very stubborn. I should admit that. I'll just come out and say I can be very stubborn, which in some cases could be good, but in some cases not so great. But I don't know that I saw myself getting it. But of course, I had thoughts of like, gosh, maybe I could just do this, or especially when it came to those stipulations that they required after they granted the exemption, which were wear an N95 mask, test twice weekly, and take a timestamp picture of the test. Or when there was an on-site meeting, I had to be on site, but then attend virtually. So basically sit in another room apart from my colleagues who were vaccinated. And so, of course, it was like, well, maybe I can deal with that. And, is it really worth losing my job over this? But it was like I just felt like in my heart, which I believe to be God, the Holy Spirit basically telling me like, Kim, stay true to your convictions. It's going to cost you a lot, but in the end, I do believe it's going to be worth it. And I actually genuinely do already feel like that. And it's only been 2 months.
Wow. I love it. I love it. Standing strong, standing brave. Yeah. So I can only imagine you have supporters and you have non-supporters. So as you're getting some of those comments, both sides, how do you handle those?
So I'm actually really grateful for the timing of all of this, because had this happened when I was fresh out of journalism school and I wasn't used to getting negative comments, I don't know that I would have handled it so well. But 10 years of getting comments, of course, like you said, I've received both. And so the negative ones, I'm really able to brush them off. The only thing that's been a little bit harder for me is I've had some friends who have pushed back on me, which is understandable, but there's been some strangers who've tweeted some pretty negative things about me. And I've had, I say friends, who have liked those comments. And so that's harder when I know them and it's a little bit more personal, but the negative comments from strangers really is not getting to me. I haven't cried over this. I thought I'd actually be more upset over it than I am. I feel like it was expected. I knew that I would get it. And so I know that people don't agree with me. And so they're just trying to hurt me, I think. They're just trying to say something that's going to upset me because they don't agree with my decision. And so you just remind yourself, it's, to me at least, I tell myself, it's not personal, but what I think has been the best part, I have received overwhelming support. When I was going to post this, I remember I was in the kitchen and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm just ready for my phone to blow up with negative comments. And I was completely dumbfounded when almost every single one of them, at least initially, were all positive. I have heard from people around the world, as far as Australia. I feel like I've had connections with people that I'd lost touch with over the years, who I maybe interviewed for a story, and they've reached out to me and they're going through something similar and they just want support. It has been amazing, the people I've been able to connect with. And that's honestly the biggest takeaway is, wow, there are a lot more people who feel the same way I do, or they've said, okay, look, I don't agree with your decision. However, I respect you for standing up for what you believe in. So it's been really cool.
Yeah. Wow. That's the best, right? Because this really isn't about the vaccine. Would you agree?
I think maybe it started out that way, but it's become so much more. Now, for me personally, this is about my freedom, right?
Yes.
And so when I've done other interviews, people like a radio station, for example, was talking about that. And I said, this isn't me trying to tell you to not get vaccinated or to get vaccinated. You need to decide what's best for you. In some cases, it might make complete sense that you go get vaccinated. All I'm saying is you should not be mandated by the government or your employer to go get it and have to choose between getting a shot that personally I don't believe has been tested enough, or in some cases putting dinner on the table, getting a paycheck and putting dinner on the table. And I've heard from people who've said that, I'm a mother, I'm a father, and I'm having to make this decision and I'm devastated over it, and I mean this genuinely, that I actually have prayed for people who are very much in favor of this mandate, that there wouldn't be a situation down the line that would go against their values, because I don't want anyone to have to deal with that. No one should have to make this decision. And I can sit here now with a smile on my face, but when I was going through this at the end of August, which is when this all happened, I described it as a shell of myself. I was crying nonstop. I was praying a lot, but I was really, really emotional. This was a very tough situation to go through. And so I don't wish that on anybody. And it just makes me sad to hear from so many people who are in the same situation, or now they're worried that, hey, my company is leaning that direction, that they may mandate this. What does that mean for me? What do I do?
What would you tell our listeners? Some advice about standing up, being brave, finding your courage.
I'll tell you, it is not easy. I'm 31. I'm about to be 32 in December. It was this year when I feel like I have my voice, and I've had this jolt of courage that I've been praying for. And I'm sure I'm still going to have times where I'm really scared, or, wanting to take a step back. But there's one verse, it's Joshua 1:9. It's, "For this I command, be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." I can't tell you how many times I would repeat that to myself over and over, even before any of this happened, but especially since this has happened, because it's so easy, in seasons of your life to feel like I've got this, and God's going to be there for me. But God's not going to forsake you. God is going to be there with you. And he doesn't just say, "Hey, you know what? I suggest that you be strong and courageous." He clearly says it. "For this I command." He commands it, and he's going to be there for us. And anything any pain or struggles, Jesus has already been through that. And the world hated him first. He says that. And so I think just knowing that, times can be really, really tough. And it is so difficult to, as I mentioned, be that fish who is swimming upstream, but people will respect you for it. And I think just knowing that God has got you, and he will use these situations that feel so, so negative. He will use that for good. And that's what I've really turned to God in this whole thing, fear God over man. I've repeated that to myself a lot too, when I was worried about the judgment that I would get. And even my friends who don't agree with me, and they've let me know they don't agree with me. And that's really hard, but I just know I have to stay true to my convictions and just, as God commands, be strong and courageous.
Love it. Love it. Yes. Wow, that's awesome. You are such a strong woman. And it's hard for me to believe that you haven't always felt that strong, but it's amazing when you have the strength of the Lord behind you, right? And if you're following his convictions, it's not always easy. Like you said, sometimes it is scary. And sometimes we're not always as brave as we hoped, but we do the best we can. So
Yeah.
As we're closing out this interview, you mentioned you are now engaged. Yes, congratulations. That's so exciting.
Thank you. Yeah, I got engaged on Labor Day in Florida.
Oh, wow. Wow. I saw the pictures on Facebook. So
Yes.
Beautiful. Tell us a little bit about upcoming wedding.
So my fiance and I are getting married on April 10th. And I actually just got a call the other day that the wedding dress is in. I'm very excited. It only took me 4 dresses to find the dress, which I was worried I'd be that person who tried on 75 and was still not sure about what I wanted, but I found it in 4. And so we had our tasting last night at the venue. And so, it's actually been, I say a distraction. I don't mean it like that, but like just kind of an example of God's timing, right? It's kept me very, very busy because I did find work. So I'm working full time, planning our wedding. And so I'm definitely busy, but it's so fun to plan and to kind of figure out everything and go over our guest list. And so very excited for that.
Good. That's so great. I can't wait to follow it on
Thank
Facebook.
you so much. Yeah, we're very excited. There's a lot to plan a wedding, I've learned, but very exciting at the same time.
Yes. One more question before we go. So about the broadcasting end of your life, what are you thinking next steps for that?
Good question. I'm taking a breather right now. I actually did this detox from news after I was let go. I did not want to watch a single newscast. I just needed to kind of check out. And so that's actually been really, really nice. And so I'm taking a step back right now, full-time job where I am happy right now and kind of just there for a while until I figure out my next steps. I don't I don't see myself doing local news anymore. I don't love the direction that local news is going personally. And that was really evident to me over the last year and a half. But, there's been some opportunities presented to me that could be possibilities down the line. So I'm just keeping my options open and praying a lot about what to do and seeking God's wisdom in all of this and trusting that the right thing will come along. I'm just, not rushing into anything just yet, especially, as we're planning this wedding. I kind of want to get married and then figure out what's next.
Right. So exciting. So exciting. Well, I just want to thank you again, Kim. You have been such an inspiration and just such a wealth of faith. And just to realize you are just a very recent believer in Jesus Christ, and yet your faith seems so strong. So I just bless you, and I just thank you, and can't wait to see what God does next.
Thank you so much, Tracie. I appreciate what you're doing too. I love again, you inspiring others with this podcast. I think that's amazing, and it's what we need right now.
Oh, well, thank you, Kim. So I appreciate you. Keep on being brave, girl. You go.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Braving It with me, Tracie Renee. My hope is that by hearing other stories of brave, it will help propel you forward into doing the same thing. If you've enjoyed this episode, I hope you will follow and subscribe. Until then, remember, brave begets brave. The more you step out in courage, the more courage you will find.